Hey everyone, we're going to look at federalism today. Simply put, when you look at federalism, it's a sharing and distribution of powers and resources between the federal government, or in this case the national government, and the states. There are other options to having a federal system of government. You can have a unitary system of government, which is a highly centralized form, or you could have a confederate style, which is a highly decentralized form of government. In a unitary system, you have the central authority with the most power, and the locals in the states have very little power. And in a confederate system, you have the states that have the most power, and the central authority, or that national government, really doesn't exist. So when you have that unitary system, or that highly centralized form of government, you would have more uniformity. And you would kind of promote some unity as well, but there would always be that fear that there would be too much uniformity and too much, let's say, national unity, where it would not become, let's say, for the people, but the government would become more of a tyranny. So we ended up getting a federal system that had a separation of powers. And understand that our state constitutions have a similar pattern when it deals with their governments and their local governments as well. So let's just say that our form of government that we have, federalism, is decentralized, but it's not crazy decentralized like a confederacy. So there are benefits to a decentralized government. We distribute authority across different sets of leaders across different states. We encourage participation. We encourage policy responsiveness. We have what we would call laboratories of democracy that, let's say the state of Illinois wants to create a policy, the state of Indiana doesn't have to create the same policy, or they can modify that policy for themselves. And it actually helps manage conflict and efficiency by localizing issues. So local governments take care of their own and states take care of their own, and not have to worry about a unitary system of government telling them what and what not to do. A big problem that people have with federalism, however, is that you have multi-layers of government. So you might think that the national government is supposed to tackle a certain issue, but it's really your state government that's supposed to tackle it. But you, in your own opinion, might believe that the national government would be better at handling such an issue. So you have all of these levels of government that might come into conflict with one another. And our history says that through slavery and segregation that we would have problems with federalism. We would also have not in my backyard type of policies, racing to the bottom, where you have states that really aren't going to help out the poor. And so you might expect your federal or national government to do so, but really it becomes a state problem, not necessarily a national problem. And that you'll always have haves and have-nots when it comes to federalism. Some people have lower taxes in their state, some people have higher taxes, some people would have programs and policies that would benefit only a few, some would have more advantageous policies that would help everyone. When you see reserved powers, that's our 10th Amendment. Those are the powers that the states get. Delegated powers and national supremacy, of course, benefit the national or federal government. States, of course, one thing that we need to know is that they handle all elections. We might have federal elections for president or Senate, House of Representatives, but those elections are conducted solely by the states. Amending the Constitution throughout the years has been very difficult. We only have 27 amendments. We do not have an Equal Rights Amendment. We do not have statehood for the District of Columbia. Remember, in order to pass an amendment, you need 2/3 of both houses of Congress and 3/4 of the states to do so. And in anything dealing with federalism, we're always talking about who gets money. The biggest thing that you have to focus on is categorical and block grants, and also our grants and aid programs, where you have the federal government pretty much holding back on how much they're going to give to states and local governments because the federal government wants to dictate how the money is spent. Of course, the states and local governments want the money spent under their discretion, not under the federal government's discretion. So you'll find that the federal government, let's say in terms of grant programs, that the federal government will want to hand out categorical grants, which the federal government controls, rather than block grants, which the state controls. And throughout the years, we've had a variety of variations, I should say, of federalism, from dual federalism all the way to something that we might call bottom-up federalism. And in each of these cases, the federal government and the state government's role changes. And in recent years, we have undertaken a direction of devolution when it comes to whose responsibility it is over a certain policy, whether it's a national government responsibility or a state's responsibility. If you believe in this policy, then you would say that the states have more responsibility over a certain policy than the national government. The issue of federalism has come up throughout the years, but really the issue of federalism has been divided on the basis of ideology, of a 5-4 basis, where conservatives tend to favor what the state's role would happen to be, rather than liberals who would favor the federal government's responsibility over an issue. And then finally, we might have something that we would call horizontal federalism when you're dealing with interstate relations. The most important thing to note is the full faith and credit clause of our Constitution, where the states must recognize the laws of other states.